Hello and welcome to a new episode of Cooking Technique Tuesday. So today we are making a 2-ingredient Pop-Tart. I have a member, her name is Linda. Hi. And she had requested to see a lower point version of a Pop-Tart, and I thought, well, I had made the 2-ingredient dough into pie crust. So it's basically, you just lessen the amount of yogurt in it, and all of the instructions are in the recipe that's attached to this. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to use that pie crust to make a lower point Pop-Tart. So I got some low sugar strawberry preserves. It's no artificial sweeteners. It's actually really good. And then we are going to use real sugar for the glaze on top, but we have to roll this dough out and bake it first. So what I'm going to do is I've got flour on the top, the bottom, because we don't want this to stick. Also throughout, as I roll this out, the dough, I'm going to move it around just to make sure and flip it over a few times. I also always flour my rolling pin. So I kind of want to, because I want to try to get as much, you want as much yield, that's what I'm trying to say, from this as possible. I'm probably only going to bake one of these off, but if, Pop-Tarts are in like a rectangle shape, so to get it kind of in a square, I'm also not a pastry chef, so I'm not all that good at that. Yeah, so we'll make do. But I was intrigued by the idea of a lower point Pop-Tart. Basically, I'm going to roll this out to the thickness of like pie crust, because you don't want it too thick. And then just a little bit of glaze on top with sprinkles. We obviously have sprinkles because is it a Pop-Tart if there's no sprinkles on it? And if this goes well, there's so many options for this, which I'm very excited about. I don't know about anybody else. My personal favorite Pop-Tart was always brown sugar cinnamon, so maybe I'll try one of those. But I always like a good challenge, and I find that 2-ingredient dough is good for so many things. So I know this isn't exactly as even as it probably should be. I always have a little bit of flour on the side too, just to make sure it doesn't stick. And when I make my 2-ingredient dough, I let the dough rest for a while. You can let it rest for like just half an hour. I tend to like to give it several hours or even overnight, just because the dough just works a little bit easier when you do that. And okay, just a little bit more, but I could tell it was kind of sticking in the center. So there we go. Alrighty. Almost there. What I'm going to do is I just want to get really one out of this. Normally I would be a little bit more, there we go. Normally I would be a little bit more exact with this, but it's all good. So it doesn't have to be perfect. That's one of the good things about cooking. You can usually make just about anything work. Just don't be afraid of the dough. That was a little threatening. Sorry. There we go. So I think that's about the thickness that I want. I'm kind of feeling it. This is again why I'm not a pastry chef. I'm not the world's most exact baker necessarily. Like if I'm making a cake, I'm pretty exact. When it's things like this, a little less exact. So, especially because I didn't really have a reference point for this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come down here, and you can, actually I was going to mention this too. Pizza cutters are better, or they're good for not just pizza. So if you wanted to, you could actually use your pizza cutter for this. Let's see. There we go. Or you could use a paring knife. Either or. Do that. And what I'm going to do is put this on top so I can make sure that it actually matches up. You can use a ruler for this as well, but easy peasy. There we go. And then what you can always do is push it, like I can get a few more Pop-Tarts out of this. I've got my 2 rectangles, yay. Let me kind of scoot this over. What I'll do later is, off camera, is kind of just re-roll this and let it rest for a little bit longer. But now I've got my rectangles. Whoop, there we go. So So I'm going to put some of my low sugar preserves. Oop, there we go. It's actually really delicious. I got the Smucker's brand. I don't think it really matters what brand you use. You can use any kind of jam, jelly, anything like that. Actually, no, this is silly. Let me use my finger. Usually your hands are some of the best utensils that you have in the kitchen. There we go. I just want to make sure it's even. But I also want to leave a little bit around the edges because what I'm going to do, I have a little bit of water over here. Whoop. Scoot that into the center. So what I'm going to do is take one of my fingers in the water and I'm just going to put a little bit around the edges to help this stick together. There we go. I know it's boring watching this part, but hey, okay. Alrighty, so I'm gonna press these together. You can also, and I totally forgot a fork over here to be quite honest. So what I will probably do off camera is grab a fork and just kind of go around the edges just to score it and to push the dough together just a little bit. I have a feeling I might have put a little too much jam, but whatever. It's gonna taste good, and that's the important thing. So I'm gonna go ahead, get this in the oven, and I'll see you when it's done. Alrighty, and we are back. So I have my Pop-Tart, but it needs some frosting. So I've got powdered sugar, I've got some milk, and what I'm going to do is just stir the two together. I really just want a very thin glaze. And I didn't want to use any artificial sweeteners for this. For the most part, I don't like to use artificial sweeteners just because I don't really like the taste of it, to be quite honest. But a very light and simple glaze adds that just a little bit of sweetness to it. Now, I did let this cool almost completely because, well, I'm going to eat this and I don't want to burn my tongue on the jam that is inside. There we go. I know it's not quite as thick necessarily as the regular Pop-Tart frosting, but a little bit lower in points, so I'll take that. And then I've got some sprinkles. Because what is a Pop-Tart without a little bit of color? I'm actually excited for this one. There we go. Alrighty, so here is our 2-ingredient dough Pop-Tart. I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bite. Ooh, that's tasty. Yep. The jam comes through. It's like a little hand pie almost, but a little Pop-Tart. So, very easy to make. I love the 2-ingredient dough. It really is one of my favorite things. So, this is our 2-ingredient dough Pop-Tart. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you make it, and I will see you next Cooking Technique Tuesday. Have a good one.